Before the dawn was light, before the first breath of time, there was only silence, and in that silence, God dreamed. When the universe still slept in the cradle of eternity, God's voice broke through the void. It was not a thunderous sound, but a whisper that summoned existence from nothingness. From the dark womb of the abyss, he drew forth light, pure, untainted, radiant, as the breath of life itself. The heavens were born, and in their crystalline expanse, he sowed the first stars, like thoughts scattered across the infinite. Each spark was a testament to his will, order from chaos, beauty from emptiness. On the second day, when the firmament divided the waters of above from those below, God wove the fabric of his court. From the same divine essence that shaped the stars, he crafted beings of light, celestial intelligences that would embody his perfection. These were the angels, luminous spirits, who sang creation into harmony. Their voices filled the new heavens with endless praise. The air trembled with the music of devotion. Among them were the mighty archangels, Gabriel, the herald of revelation, Raphael, the healer of wounds, Uriel, keeper of flame, and Michael, the defender of the throne. But of all these beings, one shone with an intensity that eclipsed all others. His name was Lucifer, the morning star, the first light to rise before the dawn. Lucifer was not merely beautiful, he was beauty itself, the mirror of divine brilliance. His wings shimmered with gold and sapphire, his countenance radiant as molten glass. To gaze upon him was to glimpse perfection unspoiled. When he moved, the other angels followed his light, for he carried in his form the very reflection of God's majesty. And for a time, all was well. The heavens swayed in rhythm with divine order. Every angel knew his station, every choir its song. Creation expanded beneath the steady pulse of God's will. And yet, in the stillness between the hymns, something subtle stirred, an echo faint at first, but growing. Lucifer began to wonder, why did the Almighty command all worship for himself alone? If all beings were made in his image, were they not fragments of his essence, reflections of his grandeur? Then why should one reflection bow eternally before another? It was not hatred that first touched Lucifer's heart, it was curiosity. But curiosity, when nourished by brilliance and pride, becomes perilous. As eons passed in celestial time, that spark of wonder turned inward. Lucifer's reflection became an object of reverence. He would gaze upon his own light, and feel within it something intoxicating. "I am made by his hand," he whispered, "yet within me burns his power. What difference, then, divides the Creator from the created?" The whisper became a conviction. The conviction became a dream. He began to imagine a throne beside God's, or perhaps above it. In the beginning he hid these thoughts in silence, ashamed and enthralled in equal measure. But thoughts have wings, and soon they took flight among those closest to him. The cherubim who guarded the gates of heaven admired his wisdom. The seraphim who encircled the throne envied his radiance. Slowly, subtly, the first fractures formed in the flawless harmony of heaven. Lucifer spoke not of rebellion, but of freedom. He clothed his pride in the language of enlightenment. "Why must we be bound by worship?" he asked softly to his kin. "Why must obedience be our only virtue? If God is love, then should not love be freely given, not commanded?" To many, his words rang true. To others, they sounded like heresy. But to Lucifer, they were revelation, the first theology born apart from God's will. Michael was the first to sense the danger. Loyal beyond measure, yet grieved at his brother's descent, he confronted Lucifer beneath the vault of stars. "Brother," he said, "you were the first of his light. Why darken yourself with pride? The radiance within you is not your own, it is his gift." Lucifer's eyes, once full of worship, now burned with defiance. "And if it is his gift," he answered, "then why should it not also be my right?" That question hung in the heavens like a poisoned seed. Even as Michael turned away, trembling at the blasphemy, Lucifer gathered around him those who listened, the dreamers, the doubters, the angels who had begun to wonder whether perfection could be improved. Their number swelled to 1/3 of the hosts. What began as thought became persuasion, and persuasion became allegiance. In his heart, Lucifer no longer desired to serve, he desired to reign. And so it came to pass that the seeds of rebellion were sown in paradise itself. No war had yet broken out, no sword had yet been drawn, but already the harmony of heaven trembled like glass before a storm. God, who sees all, watched in silence, for even in the rebellion of angels lay the mystery of his design. The Almighty had created beings of will, not puppets. In the freedom to love lay the freedom to fall. As Lucifer's ambition grew, so too did his illusion. In his mind, he was no longer the reflection of God's glory, but the source of it. He imagined a heaven remade in his image, a realm where angels would no longer kneel, where he would illuminate creation with his own fire. He looked upon the throne, and saw not awe, but rivalry. And one day, when his pride could no longer be contained, he declared his truth: I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. The heavens shuddered at his words. The choirs fell silent. And in that stillness, the light that had once been pure turned crimson. The rebellion had not yet begun, but paradise was already wounded. For the first time since the dawn, love and envy, obedience and defiance, coexisted in the same realm. Lucifer's light, once the pride of heaven, had become a mirror of what it feared most: the possibility that even perfection could decay. And so ends the age of innocence. The light that rose first before all others would soon fall the furthest. The morning star would become the prince of shadows, and the first war of existence, the war not of kingdoms, but of wills, was about to begin. There was a moment, just before the first sword was drawn, when heaven itself seemed to hold its breath, as if the cosmos feared what it was about to witness. Light turning upon light. The murmurs had grown into roars. Once confined to whispers among the choirs of angels, Lucifer's defiance now echoed through the corridors of heaven like thunder. The celestial order trembled, not from the wrath of God, but from the storm rising within his own creation. Lucifer, the morning star, no longer hid his ambition behind gentle persuasion. He had become a sovereign in exile before the war had even begun, a fallen king without a fallen crown. His followers gathered in secret beneath the silver arches of the firmament, a third of heaven's hosts drawn to his vision of freedom. They called themselves the children of the dawn, and their devotion to their radiant leader burned brighter than the devotion they once gave their maker. In their eyes, Lucifer's rebellion was not treachery, it was liberation. Why must we serve when we were born from the same divine breath? They cried. Why must eternity belong to one alone? And so, with words sweeter than hymns, Lucifer twisted the very language of heaven into his weapon. He promised them kingdoms without end, thrones of their own, glory unbound by obedience. The Creator made us in his image, he proclaimed before his gathered legions, his wings unfurled like burning banners, but he hoards the throne, fearing what we might become if we dared to see our own reflection. If he is light, then so are we, and what light does not seek to shine? Those words ignited the stars with dread. It was Michael, the archangel of fire, commander of the heavenly hosts, who stood before God's throne, grief in his heart and flame in his gaze. Father, he said, Lucifer's pride has turned the heavens restless. His light corrupts the innocent. Shall your silence endure while the stars divide? And from the throne, a voice like the beginning of creation replied, Free will was my gift to them, let it bear its fruit. That was the moment heaven's song ended, and the sound of war began. The first strike was not made with sword or flame, but with song. Lucifer and his legions sang an anthem of defiance that tore through the harmony of the celestial choirs. The melody was beautiful, achingly so, but beneath it lurked dissonance, a corruption that twisted the very fabric of the heavens. The stars dimmed, the firmament quaked. When Michael descended to the plane of light where Lucifer's army gathered, he found his brother transformed. The radiance that once filled Lucifer's face was now sharp, edged with fury and sorrow. His wings shimmered not with gold, but with a crimson hue that bled into the clouds. Lucifer, Michael said, do not do this. You stand on the edge of the abyss and mistake it for dawn. Lucifer smiled, a terrible mournful smile. I do not fall, brother, I rise. You kneel to a throne that fears what it cannot control. I will build another, one that welcomes all light. Michael's hand tightened on his flaming sword. then your light shall burn alone. The sky split open, from one horizon to the next. Angels collided in a cataclysm of wings and flame. Heaven became a battlefield of light and sound. Radiance turned into weaponry. Spears of fire clashed against shields of crystal. Voices that once sang praise now screamed in fury. The oceans of heaven churned as the very laws of creation were shaken. Lucifer led the charge himself, his sword gleaming like a shard of the first star. His beauty, once serene, had become terrible, magnificent and monstrous at once. Every blow he struck echoed through eternity. Behind him followed the mighty Beelzebub, lord of the storming winds, Belphegor, silent and watchful as stone, and Azazel, the fiery one who revelled in chaos. Against them stood Michael's armies, Gabriel with his silver trumpet that called the faithful to arms, Raphael who healed the wounded even as he fought, and Uriel whose eyes blazed with divine wrath. The heavens themselves were torn apart. Constellations shattered, rivers of light spilled from the wounds in creation. It was said that even time faltered, as angel fought angel, immortal beings dying for the first time, their light scattering like falling stars. At the heart of this cosmic storm, Michael and Lucifer met once more. "Once we were brothers," Michael said, his voice shaking the firmament. "We still are," Lucifer replied, lifting his blade, "but only one of us remembers what it means to be free." Their swords clashed and creation screamed. Fire poured from the heavens, cascading through the realms below. Mountains of light crumbled. The sea of glass shattered into fragments. The echoes of their battle reached even to the newborn earth, where the oceans churned though no wind blew. The war in heaven had become the tremor beneath all existence. Lucifer fought with fury unmatched. Every strike was fueled by the conviction that he was right, that God's rule was tyranny disguised as order. But for all his brilliance, Michael's resolve did not waver. Each time Lucifer rose, Michael met him with flame and faith. Then, for the first time, Lucifer faltered. Michael's sword pierced his light, not to destroy, but to separate him from the source of divine grace. Lucifer fell to his knees, his brilliance fading into shadow. Around him, his legions cried out as one, their wings darkening, their halos extinguished, and God's voice, calm as eternity itself, filled the battlefield. "There can be no dawn without the night that follows, so let the morning star fall, and let his light become a warning." The gates of heaven opened, not to welcome, but to cast out. Lucifer screamed as he fell, the echo of his voice becoming thunder. His followers plummeted behind him, a river of flame cutting through the void. What had once been the music of the spheres turned to lamentation. Heaven, wounded but whole, sealed its gates. Below, the fallen ones crashed into the newborn world, their descent carving chasms and mountains, their rage igniting the first storms, and where they struck deepest, beneath the crust of creation, a new realm opened, a place not made by God's design, but by divine absence. Hell, the light of heaven dimmed for 7 days. Michael sheathed his sword, his face streaked with tears that burned as they fell. He gazed down into the darkness, where his brother's voice still echoed faintly, bitter and eternal. And though peace returned to heaven, silence followed it, an uneasy, watchful silence. For the angels knew the war had not ended, it had only changed form. The battlefield had shifted from the heavens to the earth, and soon mankind, the fragile new image of God, would stand between light and shadow. Michael turned to the throne. "Is it finished, Father?" But the voice of God did not answer. Far below, in the depths of the new inferno, Lucifer opened his eyes. His wings were scorched black, his beauty scarred, but his gaze burned brighter than ever. Around him, his fallen brethren bowed, trembling in awe and terror. Lucifer looked upward, toward the unreachable light, and whispered through the smoke, "This is not the end, it is only the beginning." He fell through light and flame, but it was not the abyss that broke him, it was silence. And in that silence, he heard the soft pulse of a new creation, a world untouched by rebellion. When the smoke of heaven's war had settled and the fallen ones found themselves cast into the pit, there was no time in hell, only suffering measured by thought and memory. Lucifer lay amid rivers of fire, his wings torn, his beauty scorched, and yet his mind, brilliant, restless, unyielding, refused to die. He could feel the hum of creation above him. Through the cracks of the underworld's vault, faint whispers of life trembled, a heartbeat, a breath, the rustle of leaves beneath an uncorrupted sky. The Creator had moved on. From the ashes of rebellion, God had turned his gaze toward something new, and Lucifer, still burning, still proud, felt the sting of divine indifference. The angels who had followed him, now demons without names, looked to their master. They waited, terrified, as Lucifer rose from the molten dark. His voice came low, like thunder beneath the sea. "He forgets us," he said. "He builds anew, he replaces us." Azazel knelt before him. "What has he made, my lord?" Lucifer's lips curved into something like a smile, a reflection of himself, but weaker, flesh instead of flame, breath instead of eternity, a creature that worships, but does not understand. And through that bitterness, an idea began to take form, clear and sharp as a blade of obsidian. If he could not wound God in heaven, he would wound him in his creation. The world above was a garden, Eden, radiant and untouched. The air shimmered with divine breath, rivers of crystal cut through the land, trees swayed under golden light that never dimmed. The animals knew no fear, the earth itself sang softly beneath the feet of its first children. Adam walked the garden as its keeper, clothed not in fabric but in innocence. He named the creatures, and tended the soil, and wherever he stepped, the flowers bent toward him in joy. Yet even amid all beauty, something within him was restless, a loneliness unnamed. So God cast Adam into sleep, and shaped from his rib a companion, flesh of his flesh, spirit of his spirit. When Adam awoke, he beheld Eve and found, for the first time, completion. They lived in perfect harmony. No death, no pain, no hunger, no shame. The garden was theirs, all but one tree, whose fruit was forbidden. In the center of the garden, God had said, is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You may eat of every tree but this one. For on the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. It was not punishment but protection, a limit born of love. Yet in the heart of man and woman stirred the same curiosity that once bloomed in Lucifer's. They could not yet name it, but it waited, quietly, patiently, for a voice to awaken it. From the shadows of the world's edge, that voice called. Lucifer had found his way into Eden, not as the blazing archangel of old, but as something subtler. The form he chose was elegant, ancient, and serpentine. He glided through the grass with a grace that mocked divinity, his eyes reflecting the same light he had lost. He watched them for days. Adam's laughter, Eve's wonder, the peace that filled their eyes. To Lucifer, it was unbearable. Here was a creation loved more deeply than he had ever been. Here were mortals, frail and temporary, who carried the divine likeness he once claimed as his own. He would not destroy them. No, he would awaken them. That, he decided, was the cruelest vengeance of all. He found Eve alone near the forbidden tree, her fingers tracing the strange fruit that shimmered like liquid gold. "Why do you look upon it so sadly?" the serpent asked, his voice smooth as silk. Eve turned, startled. "It is forbidden. God commanded us not to touch it, nor eat of it, lest we die." Lucifer coiled upon the branch, his scales catching the sunlight. "Die? Is that what he told you?" She hesitated. "Yes." He leaned closer, his gaze piercing. "Then he has lied. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." The words slipped into her like music. "You shall be as gods." Eve looked again at the fruit, its surface reflecting her face, perfect, innocent, incomplete. Was it possible that she and Adam had been made less than they could be, that the Creator, like any ruler, kept them bound by ignorance? Lucifer watched her tremble with doubt. His smile widened. He remembered that same trembling in himself once long ago, before the first war began. Eve reached out, hand shaking, and plucked the fruit. Its skin broke with a sound like distant thunder. The first sin was not disobedience. It was the belief that one could be equal to the divine. She tasted, and the world shifted. The light that once surrounded her dimmed, replaced by awareness of self, of shame, of loss. When Adam joined her, and their eyes met, they saw not beauty but nakedness, the innocence of Eden shattered. From beyond the trees a wind rose. The Creator's voice moved through the garden. Adam, where are you? They hid among the leaves, trembling. The serpent coiled above them, silent, victorious. When God beheld what they had done, sorrow filled the garden. Who told you that you were naked? He asked. Adam's voice broke. The woman whom you gave me, she gave me the fruit. And Eve, tears streaming, said, the serpent deceived me. Then came the first judgment. To the serpent, God said, upon your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between your seed and hers. She shall crush your head, and you shall strike her heel. To Eve he said, in pain you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be for your husband. To Adam, cursed is the ground for your sake. By the sweat of your brow shall you eat bread until you return to the dust. The gates of Eden closed. 2 angels, radiant and sorrowful, stood with flaming swords to guard the way to the tree of life. And outside those gates, beneath the vast and empty sky, the first man and woman wept, not for punishment, but for the silence that followed. In the depths below, Lucifer watched. His laughter echoed through the hollow chambers of hell. He had not destroyed the Creator's work. He had corrupted it, shaped it in his own image. The curse of pride now lived in the hearts of God's new children. Now he whispered to his fallen kin, he will never know peace. For man shall forever chase the throne we once sought. But even as he spoke, a shadow flickered in the flame, a whisper that chilled him, the seed of the woman shall crush the serpent's head. Lucifer's smile faltered. For the first time since the fall, doubt crept into the Lord of Hell's heart. He turned his gaze upward, where the stars still sang beyond his reach, and felt a strange, burning dread. Something greater than vengeance was stirring. Something neither angel nor demon could stop. And in that trembling silence, as the fires of hell dimmed, the seeds of another story were sown. A story not of angels or demons, but of the first woman, born not of sin, but of defiance. Before Eve's breath stirred the dust, another woman walked the garden. Her name was never spoken, her story buried under centuries of silence. But the silence remembers. Before the serpent coiled, before the fruit was plucked, there was another beginning, one erased from sacred record, hidden behind the veil of patriarchal memory. In the first shaping of man, when God molded Adam from clay and breathed into him the living soul, he did not yet draw woman from his rib. He formed her beside him, from the same dust, the same divine breath. Her name was Lilith, the first woman, the one who stood as Adam's equal. In the earliest dawn of creation, Lilith and Adam walked side by side through the garden. They named the beasts together, laughed under the same light, drank from the same rivers. There was no shame between them, no hierarchy, only balance. But soon, that balance began to tremble. For though God had given them both life, Adam believed himself greater. When they lay together, he demanded she be beneath him, as though dominion over the earth granted him dominion over her. But Lilith's spirit was not made for submission. She rose defiant, and said the words that would echo through eternity. We are both made from the same earth. You are no master of me. Adam, unaccustomed to defiance, grew wrathful. He called upon God to settle the matter, but the Almighty did not answer. The heavens remained silent, as though testing the fragile boundaries of free will once more. So Lilith made her choice. She left. She turned her back on Adam, on Eden, on the paradise that had no place for her voice. She crossed the threshold of the garden's edge, her bare feet pressing into the unformed soil beyond. There, she felt for the first time the wildness of the world, untamed, godless, free. Adam called out to God, lamenting his solitude. The woman has fled from me, he cried. She refuses her place. Then God sent 3 angels, Senoi, Sansenoi, and Semenjelov, to find her. They found Lilith near the shores of the Red Sea, her hair tangled in the wind, her eyes dark with newfound knowledge. Return to the garden, they commanded. Submit to Adam, and all shall be forgiven. Lilith laughed. I will not crawl back to a throne built from ribs. The angels warned her, if you refuse, you will be cursed. You will bear no children of light. Your offspring will perish. Her face hardened. Then I will not bear children for a master. I will bear them for myself. The angels hesitated, uncertain perhaps of their own words, and when they left her, Lilith cast her gaze skyward. God, she whispered, you made me whole. Why must I be broken to be loved? The heavens did not answer, so Lilith walked into exile, her body alive with the pulse of a new power, one drawn not from obedience, but from defiance. Centuries later, storytellers would twist her name into shadow. They would say she mated with demons, that she seduced men in their sleep, that her children were monsters who drank the blood of infants. But long before she was branded the mother of demons, Lilith was simply free. In the solitude of the Red Sea's desolate shores, she learned the language of darkness and moonlight. She spoke with the spirits of the night, and found kinship in creatures untamed. And from that communion, something ancient awoke, an echo of the divine that had been denied her. It was not Satan who found her, it was she who found herself. Lucifer, bound in the depths, watched her rise with both admiration and envy. Here was another exile, another rebel cast out not for sin, but for selfhood. In Lilith, he saw a mirror, a reflection of what he once had been before pride became poison. When he sent his whispers upon the wind, Lilith heard them. Why serve the Maker who cast you away? The voice murmured. Why kneel to a God who silences you? Lilith smiled. I kneel to no one. Then come, the whisper replied. Join me beneath the stars. The throne of heaven is lost, but a kingdom of night awaits. And thus the pact was sealed, not in chains, but in choice. Lilith became the first woman to walk both heaven and hell, a bridge between light and darkness. She was no demon yet, but her legend began to twist. As men retold her story, her independence frightened them. Her refusal to yield became her damnation. When God saw Adam's loneliness once more, he created another woman, this time not from dust, but from Adam's rib, soft and compliant. Her name was Eve, and when Lilith saw the new woman walking beside the man who had once claimed her, jealousy stirred, not of love, but of injustice. She had been erased, replaced, rewritten into absence. Some say it was she who came to Eden disguised as the serpent, whispering rebellion into Eve's ear. Others say she only watched, unseen, as the new woman repeated the same mistake that had cast her out. But in either telling, the truth remains, it was Lilith's shadow that guided the fall. Eve reached for the fruit, not merely out of temptation, but out of a hunger buried deep in her flesh, the same hunger that once burned in Lilith's, the desire to know, the yearning to choose. When mankind was driven from Eden, the world grew wild and cruel. Women labored in pain, men toiled in sweat, and above them all, Lilith's name became a curse, whispered in the dark. Mothers tied amulets to their infants' wrists, etched with the names of the angels sent to subdue her. They feared that Lilith, the night hag, would come to steal their children, driven by vengeance. But they never knew the truth, that she too mourned every loss, every stillborn cry carried on the wind. Her curse was not to kill, but to wander forever between creation and destruction, belonging to neither heaven nor earth. And still, through centuries and civilizations, her image changed. To the Hebrews, she was a demoness. To the Babylonians, a spirit of storms. To the Sumerians, a goddess of the moon. Each retelling stripped or restored her power, reshaping her to fit the fears of men. But through it all, one truth remained constant. She was the voice that refused silence. As ages passed, Lilith's story became myth, then warning, then symbol. Yet in every era, every rebellion, her name surfaced again, carried by women who would not bow. From ancient priestesses to modern heretics, she lived in whispers and bloodlines, her defiance immortal. She was no longer just the mother of demons, she was the mother of resistance. And deep within the caverns of hell, Lucifer still spoke her name with reverence. She was not his servant, nor his consort, but his equal in defiance, the one soul who had never fallen, because she had chosen exile before sin. But Lilith's story did not end in the desert, for prophecy spoke of a time when the children of Eve and Lilith would cross paths once more, when innocence and rebellion, submission and freedom, would clash upon the same earth. And when that day came, the balance of heaven and hell would tremble again. Far below, Lucifer smiled. The world, he whispered, is ripening. And above him, somewhere in the cold light of the moon, a woman's laughter echoed through the night, half sorrow, half promise. For even forgotten mothers remember their children, and sometimes they come back to claim them. But even prophecy fades beneath the weight of eternity. As her laughter vanished into the void, the fires below began to stir once more. When heaven sealed its gates, and hell found its order, there arose a silence across eternity, one not of peace, but of plotting. For in the ruins of rebellion, the fallen began to dream again. In the molten corridors of the abyss, Lucifer sat upon a throne of obsidian flame. Around him gathered his generals, those once called angels, now twisted into forms that mirrored their sins. The infernal host had grown quiet since the fall, each demon learning to wear his punishment as skin. But in the stillness, something began to move, a purpose, dark and divine in its precision. Lucifer's pride had once been his downfall, but now it became his weapon. He would not charge heaven again with fire and sword. That path had failed. His vengeance would not be brute force. It would be infiltration, corruption, seduction. The war would be fought not in heaven's light, but in man's heart. Lucifer's voice, calm as cold metal, filled the infernal halls. We were cast down by the hand of righteousness, he said. But righteousness is not eternal. The Almighty bound us to this pit, yet he left his new creation unguarded. Man molded in his image, fragile, curious, hungry for power. I see in them a reflection of us before we fell, and I will use that reflection to open the gates once more. The legions stirred. From the shadows emerged the 7 princes of hell, each embodying the ruin that had devoured them since the dawn of rebellion. First came Lucifer himself, radiant still, though his beauty was agony. He was pride incarnate, the crown of vanity, the flame that refused to kneel. Beside him stood Mammon, once the keeper of divine treasures, now the god of greed. His eyes glimmered with the lust of gold, his hands clutching coins that screamed with every grasp. Man will trade his soul for comfort, he hissed. Give him wealth, and he will forget heaven. Then came Asmodeus, the prince of lust, his voice dripping with poisoned honey. Once an angel of harmony, now he sowed discord in every touch, every secret desire. I will twist love until it devours itself. Beelzebub followed, swollen and vile, his form surrounded by swarms of blackened flies. He was gluttony given flesh, a devourer of everything pure. Let them feast, he croaked, until their hunger drowns them. Leviathan rose next, the serpent of the deep, whose scales shimmered with envy. His body coiled through the cavern, like an ocean storm. Let them crave what others have until they drown in their longing. Then came Astaroth, the accuser, embodiment of wrath. He burned like a star collapsing inward, his rage a boundless tide. I will teach them hatred so refined, he snarled. They will call it justice. And last of all came Belphegor, the slothful lord of decay, moving as though time itself had forgotten him. Give them ease, he murmured. Let them love idleness more than truth. Together, they formed the council of corruption, the 7 heads of hell's hydra. Each would whisper their sin into humanity, and through those whispers, the divine image would erode. Ages passed. Empires rose. Empires burned. The angels above wept to see the handiwork of heaven slowly poisoned by doubt and desire. Every sin, every cruelty, every act of pride was a seed planted by the fallen. Lucifer watched it unfold from the abyss, patient as a god, yet one plan remained incomplete, one dream too vast for even his princes to enact. The world, though broken, still looked to the sky. Even in suffering, mankind prayed. Hope flickered in their eyes like a stubborn flame to extinguish it completely. Lucifer would need something greater than temptation. He would need a savior of his own. And so the prophecy was born. The coming of the Antichrist, the dark reflection of the Son of God, where heaven had sent the Word made flesh. Hell would send the lie given life. The child would not rise from flame or shadow, but from a womb born of a woman, clothed in humanity. He would grow like any other, his brilliance indistinguishable from virtue. The world would adore him before it feared him. Lucifer spoke the plan to his council, his eyes gleaming with infernal light. When God sent his Son, he offered salvation. When I send mine, I will offer freedom, not chains of sin, but the illusion of choice. For man will not reject heaven for hell, but he will reject heaven for himself. The demons listened in awe. Never had their master sounded so certain, so divine. The war that began in heaven would end on earth, not with swords but with beliefs. Centuries later, as mankind built kingdoms and burned them, as faith turned to dogma and dogma to division, whispers began to spread. A leader would rise, a visionary, a peacemaker. He would speak not of worship, but of unity, not of sin, but of freedom. His words would soothe the weary and challenge the devout, and in his presence miracles would unfold, wounds healing, storms calming, hearts bending toward his will. The world would hail him as Savior, the faithful would call him blessed, but those with eyes to see would tremble, for in his gaze they would glimpse a familiar light, the same brilliance that once filled heaven's morning star. He would claim no godhood, not at first, that was his genius. He would only ask, why worship what you can become? And humanity, tired of waiting for heaven, would answer him. As his influence grew, the old religions cracked, temples fell silent, the cross became a symbol of oppression rather than grace. The Antichrist's new faith spread like wildfire, uniting nations under one creed, the creed of self. Lucifer watched through mortal eyes, his laughter echoing through the void. He had not needed to lift a sword. Mankind had crowned him willingly, but even in triumph, a shadow stirred. For every kingdom that knelt to his false Messiah, a remnant of light endured, a few who refused the illusion, who spoke of a coming reckoning. They whispered of a return, of a second dawn when heaven would descend once more to reclaim what was lost. The Antichrist ignored them. He had no need for fear. His dominion was secure. The 7 princes roamed freely, their sins woven into the very fabric of civilization. Greed became progress. Lust became freedom. Pride became enlightenment. Wrath became justice. Envy became ambition. Gluttony became culture. Sloth became peace. Humanity, believing itself godlike, had become its own apocalypse. In the stillness before the end, the false Messiah stood before his reflection in a mirror of obsidian glass, and behind that reflection, beyond the thin veil of mortal sight, Lucifer smiled from the abyss. Soon, he whispered, the throne will be empty, and I will sit where he once sat, not above heaven, but within every human heart. But as the Antichrist turned from the mirror, a tremor ran through the world. The seas darkened, the stars dimmed, and a voice older than time murmured through the wind. He will come again, not in silence but in fire. Lucifer's smile faltered. The abyss trembled. For the first time since his fall, the morning star felt something colder than pride. He felt fear, from the dawn of light to the depths of damnation. This saga has traced the eternal struggle between creation and rebellion, between divine order and the defiant will that seeks to rival it. We watched Lucifer's fall from radiance, the rise of mankind through temptation, Lilith's forgotten defiance, and the infernal council that birthed the Antichrist himself. Across the ages, the war between heaven and hell has shifted from celestial battlefields to the fragile hearts of humanity, where pride, desire, and doubt wage the same war that once tore eternity apart. And as the shadows deepen, one truth remains unbroken: every fall begins not in darkness but in light. If this journey through myth, theology, and rebellion captivated you, if you felt the fire of heaven's war, or the echo of forbidden knowledge, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next descent into history's darkest legends. Every episode, we dive deep into the stories that shaped faith and fear alike, from angels and demons to forgotten gods, cursed rulers, and the myths that still haunt our world today. Your voice matters in what we explore next. Comment below, which story should rise next from the shadows? Do you want the tragic saga of Cain and Abel, the mystery of the Watchers and the Nephilim, or perhaps the infernal reign of the beast itself? Share your thoughts, theories, and interpretations, because these stories live on only when they are retold. Until next time, remember, Even light casts a shadow.